Welcome back, friends. Gabriel Kevin here. How are you today? Here's another installment in my music tutorials for mixing, mastering, producing, even songwriting. And this is just one for how do you add a song? How do you create a new song? How do you create a new project? How do you open up an existing one? And it's pretty straightforward in Studio One. So let's just dive right into it. Here is the screen that you're going to end up with first every time you launch Studio One. Now I'm using Studio One Professional. It is 4.6, so what you're seeing here is 4.6. I do have 5.5, but all the songs that I use in these tutorials are my own songs that I've mixed and mastered, and they were done in 4.6, so I have to stay in 4.6 to show you these things. Okay, let's get into it. So now there's multiple things you can do on the screen. One is this side here says recent files. So these are the recent files that you have opened and done something with, and it just remembers it for you. So if you want to go back and I want to re-edit Red Hot, I just click on that. It'll open up that session. And it tells you how long ago that you made last changes to it, which is kind of cool. Not really that big of a deal. And then over here to the right of this dialog is a bunch of Presonus, and Presonus is the company that makes Studio One, videos and tips and tricks and stuff like that. And it's really kind of cool. You can do some of these, and it's like here, track view shortcuts, and it just keeps going. And as long as you have an internet access, this will get filled in. Down here is where it's going to show your audio interface, and I use Studio 192, and that's explained in other tutorials. And it's down there in my rack down there, but I stay within the Presonus family because the Studio 192 audio interface, that's where you plug in your microphones and everything that gets recorded into your DAW, DAW, Digital Audio Workstation. So this is saying that it does recognize the fact that I have an audio interface, and this is the one. I'm not sure if every other one has a picture. I used Focusrite before, and I'm not sure. I think it did have a picture of it. And this is your sample rates and stuff like that. So let's get into this. Up top here we have create new song, create new project, open existing document. Create new song is fairly straightforward, and we're going to do that. Create a new project. Gabriel, what's a project? Well, in Studio One, a project is a mastering session. So when you create a new song, you're going to go into a more recording / mixing session where you will add tracks and you will do recordings of guitars and vocals, and you'll build all your tracks, 200,000 tracks, and you mix it all together, and you end up with a final mix of your song, and that is in a song file. Project is the mastering session. Now, if you don't know what mastering is kind of putting the final touches on your already mixed song. So you mix everything down, and it has a nice wave file, and it has, so mixing down goes to left and right, so it's only 2 tracks. And then you import that into a mastering session, which we're going to look at. And in the mastering session is where you do your mastering. Now, you can do 2 things with mastering. One, you can go to a mastering house, and that's a place where there are really great mastering folks, and they will take your mixed down wave files, and you'll go into a room, you'll sit there, or you'll send it to them, and they'll send it back. Back in the day, you sat in the room and stuff like that, but you pay by the hour, and you're going to pay for this. So, you can go to, I believe Disc Makers has the ability to send your files, and they'll do mastering, and you go back and forth. And I think you get as many as you want changes. So you can do that, or you can learn how to do your own mastering. I used to go to mastering houses. I used to use Disc Makers. I believe it's Disc Makers. And now I do my own. And if you want to do your own, then you would create a new project. So a project is a mastering session. That's where I was going with a little background on mastering if you don't know much about that. I do have a tutorial on mastering, so if you want to learn more about that, please check that out, and check out other folks on YouTube, etc., on mastering, because music is subjective. A great mastering guy that I work with made that point to me really strong, and I agree with it completely. It's completely subjective, so there's no right or wrong, but learn as much as you can. So let's do a new song. So we're going to create a new song, and it brings up this dialog box, and up here at the top, song title is where you're going to put your song title. So I'm going to make a temporary one. I'm going to call it tutorial. Wow, that was creative. And down here is the location. So this is where all your songs are going to be stored, and it's going to be called Studio One etc. And it's going to create a whole file structure. Look at my backup tutorial, and I kind of explained the file structures in that tutorial. Down here, this is what your choices are when you're setting up your song. Now, if you're not familiar with these things, I'm going to do a real quick overview of them, but I do highly recommend like kilohertz and bits and bars and lions and tigers and bears. Everybody, oh my. Okay, Gabriel, get back. Okay, here, I'm back. Okay, so sample rate. Sample rate, look it up. It's how many samples and the speed of the samples that is occurring. It's very technical. All I'm going to say is here that I always use 48. I don't go higher. You can. The higher, generally, people would say the better. But 48 is usually more than enough. I would not use 44.1. And if you're not familiar with 44.1, that is the sample rate for CDs, compact discs. And all CDs are 44.1 16-bit. So the reason why I would use 48, and I want to get down here to this one too, 24-bit. So it's 24-bit 48 kilohertz. Or you would have, if you drop this down, or 16-bit 41 kilohertz. Now 16-bit 41 is a CD. 16-bit is not as much as 24-bit. I figured that one out all by myself. And again, another mastering, real good mastering friend, and who did a lot of my prior way back when songs mastering. I had brought 16-bit 44.1 in a DAT tape. Back then, DAT tape, digital audio tape. That's what you had to bring, and you had to have DAT machines. So I digress, but I do come from reel to real world. And he said, no. 24-bit 48 kilohertz. You get more bits, you get more information in the song, and it's a lot more stuff that can be used in mastering, and it just makes it more robust, and there's just a lot more information there. So if you had 16-bit resolution, and you want to go, so that's only going to be this much, and 24 will be this much. So there's more information that it's capturing, and it can use to process the sound of your song. If you start with 24, you can go down to 16, and that's okay because you're going to have to if you're going to do a CD. But if you start with 16, you want to go to 24, there's a lot of blank space there. There's nothing in there, so you're not gaining anything. So why not do 24-bit and 48 kilohertz? Look it up, make your own decision. That's my plug. Time base. I use bars because I tend to do it from a more musical type of structure within your mixing session. There'll be these lines, and those lines are either bars, like bars, a quarter note, eighth note, stuff like that, or you can do samples, or you can do seconds, or you can do frames. I always use bars because I tend to think in the music theory way, so that's up to you. Song length, this is, I believe, your max length or the initial length of your song. So 6 minutes, you obviously can go past 6 minutes. It's not the max length. That was wrong. It's the initial length, and you can make your song go further. Look at my track tutorial where you have the start marker and the end marker, and you can push the end marker out and make your song go further. Tempo, this is your initial tempo. Generally, it's like either 120 usually starts with here. I believe it defaults to 120, which is an average tempo. So if you wanted to do a ballad, you might want to start at 100 or 90. If you wanted to do a really fast song, maybe 135, but it doesn't matter because you can change tempo in your mixing session, and it won't change the pitch. It's a beautiful thing. And so just pick a rough round where you want to be here. Time signature. Now we get a little more music theory. Time signature 4/4, 4 beats per measure. Most rock songs, most pop songs, most stuff that you probably hear is 4/4 time signature. I don't want to get into music theory, but if you thought to do something different, like 3/4 or whatever, then you probably know music theory. You wouldn't be making that decision. So if you want to look up more about what this is, please look up, do research on time signature. But generally, 4 beats per measure, etc., is the norm for most pop, rock songs, etc. Time signature I do not use, and the rest of the stuff is it's just giving you some information. It's an empty song. Create an empty song. Over here, we have styles. So the first one is empty song, and that's what I do. And then you have other things where Presonus is trying to give you house techno or band recording, and it'll give you a template to start with, and then you can go from there. I have not used any of these, I will be honest. I just start with an empty song. So let's hit OK. And here we are. This is the mix. This is the recording mixing session. So this will be a song. Here's the song title up here. And you can add tracks. You can add different views. For instance, I always, and you'll know this from my tutorials, I always pick console because I like consoles. So here's a console. So here's your main out, and there's nothing here. Why? Because I didn't create any tracks yet. And I'm going to do a real quick track just to show what it looks like. So I'm going to do it. Add audio track, and look at my track tutorial for a lot more detail. It's 3 parts. And it created a track here. So this is the track list here, and I'm going to make this a little bigger. And then all your tracks will show here, and all your recordings will show across here. And this is your timeline, and these are the bars. So I picked bars. So these lines here will be bars like quarter notes and stuff like that. And you can change the definition and the spacing between them and how you're going to lock the grid and all that stuff. And that's in the track tutorial. And then down here, when you add a track up here, it adds it to the console. So just like a hardware console. Here's a fader. You can move up and down. You know, you can move your panning and all that stuff. Again, look at the track tutorial. So if you're going to be building, I would assume you're going to be building a lot more tracks than this. They're all going to be down here in your console, and it'll look like, you know, a normal console going across as you build your tracks. Over here is where your effects are. The plugins that you have are the ones that came with Presonus. So you have Presonus ones. Solemnity comes with Presonus, so it is a separate company. That's Melodyne, a pitch editor, etc., etc. There's more on that. There's a whole tutorial actually on Melodyne. And then your instruments, any of the MIDI instruments that you use. I use Easy Bass, Easy Drummer, Easy Keys from TuneTrack. So over here, that's where that stuff is. So your tracks are here, your console's down here if you use the console view. And that's and up here is what you can change your cursor to. So this can do a range of stuff. This can do a cutting of a track, etc. And again, in the track tutorial, I don't want to waste your time here where it's already someplace else. Down here on the left is where you define your I/O and the way you want to view things here. Look at my navigation tutorial, and that will more explain that. So that's really it in terms of creating a song. Now, word of advice, if I may. Gabriel, do you create a new song like this every time you do a new song? I'm writing a new song, and I'm going to record it. Do I do this? No, I do not. I tend to like to have my own template. And how do I do my own template? So I have a song Red Hot, Wonderland. You can hear my songs. They're mastered songs on Spotify, Pandora, or on my channel. They're here too. And I always recommend that when you look at any of my tutorials and the nitty-gritty stuff that I'm going through, then go out to the master song and listen to the final result of that work, because it's all the mixing and all the stuff and all the mastering, and then there's your final product. So always go from there to there. But what I do is, since I have songs that exist, I'll take one that's close to the style that I'm going to do new, and I'll copy it and rename it. And then I'll delete all the tracks. It could be 100 some tracks. I'll delete all the tracks except one vocal, one guitar, one bass, and maybe some MIDI tracks like Easy Drummer or something. So I have those as my template. I'll delete all the events out of them. And now I'm starting with my own template of work that I've already done. So I'm preserving my vocal effects. I'm preserving my guitar effects. I'm preserving compression, this, that, and the other. And I start with my own template, and therefore I don't have to start from scratch and just rebuild all that. If you're starting out completely new, you're going to have to go here, and that's going to be true in every DAW, like Pro Tools, etc. But I would recommend that once you've created a song, or 2, or 3, or 20, use your own songs as templates, and then you don't have to like build this from scratch every time. Plus, at the same time, it'll set your I/O to be what you've already set your I/O to be. That's your audio interface, and the inputs that you're coming in with and the outputs you're going out with to the main mix over here, that's all set up. You already did the work, so why not just copy? Okay, that's a song. Let's do this. Let's go up here, and let's close. Let's say no, I'm not saving. All right, we're back here. Okay, so now if I click any of these, it's going to open up an existing thing. These are all existing. Let's do a new project, and this will be the mastering session. You put in here your name, location. This is a lot easier than the song. Sample rate, I would pick 48. You can look that up again. Import tracks from DDP image. If you don't know what a DDP image is, that's something that you would create normally from your mastering session. And that's a bunch of files and an image of your mastered sessions of those songs that you can send to a disc makers or someplace that does CD duplication. And there's other ways that you can export out of a mastering session or a project. So let's look at that. Let's open this up. This is the mastering session that you would get, and this is completely blank. And again, look at my mastering tutorial for how I master and what I've learned from a lot of great mastering folks in the industry. Here would be where you would import your songs. So you would basically import a mixed song. So you mixed your songs in your song session, and you finished it, and you're like, this is great, I love it. You've mixed down in the song session, and you've made a WAV file or MP3 file. You listen to your favorite references in your car or whatever. You're like, I am good with this. Vocals are right, everything's right. It's mixed the way I want. Does Gabriel have a mixing tutorial? Yes, he does. And he just said that. I just love this stuff. So I just like, helping, because people have helped me, and that I just believe in that, in a community of artists and everything. And I say that all the time, so I'm going to keep saying it. So you would have your songs here that are mixed down. So why would you bring them here if they're already mixed down? Because you're going to master them. Or if you're going to master them, you're going to use this. If you're going to send it out, send it out. So here you can add your songs, and you add the songs. And when you do that, you have to update a thing called mastering files, and it creates this master WAV file that's used in this specifically. And you look at my backup tutorial, it tends to show the file structure that Studio One uses on your computer. And that's good to know, because when you have to back up stuff, you need to know what files you're going to back up. So when you add these songs here and it updates the mastering file, those songs appear down here in the timeline. And they appear down here in the timeline in a left-right. So there's only 2 tracks, right? Because a mixed down song, no matter how many tracks it is, always goes to a stereo mixed down. Even if you're doing mono, it's still going to be stereo. It'll be the exact same thing. But it'll be 2 tracks left and right. And then your next song would be the one after that, and after that. And this is where you can build your CD, and that's up here, like here, DDP image. So that's where you would create it. Or you can take it and do a digital release, and there's nothing here, so it's not going to do anything. But a digital release will show these, and it will say, do you want to create individual files, mastered files, from what you just did here in this mastering session? And then you can take those files, and that's what you would use if you're going to send it to Spotify, Pandora, or any distribution like DistroKid or CD Baby or whatever. You would send them a WAV file, and you would use this digital release, and that's how you get your mastered files to those streaming platforms and stuff like that. So look at the mastering tutorial. I don't want to start building stuff here and waste your time, but this is how you create a project, which is a mastering session. I hope that helps. So let's get out of this and close this and not save it. And we're back here. So again, here, after you create your song, you're not going to hit new song. You're not going to hit create new project. You can say open an existing document. Now, document, they say, because a document will be either a song or a project. They could probably say here, open an existing song or project, but they say document, so don't get confused with that. Or you can just go here and just click on, I want to edit holding on to, and I just click on that. Okay. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just real quick here to end this tutorial is to show you that I'm going to first be able to click here and it will open up. But this one here, this angel, and it doesn't say it, but this is a project. And this here below, red hot, is a song, but it doesn't say it. But I would hope that you would know the naming of your stuff. And so you would know that, hey, this is a project. So I called it angel. I'm going to click on it. And I'm doing this because it doesn't take that long to open a project, where sometimes if you have 100 whatever tracks in a song, it could take couple minutes for it to open because it's loading all the plugins in. And if you're using Melodyne, all kinds of processing, it has to load all that stuff in and present it to you in the session so that you can start doing whatever you want to do. It just reloads it every time because it's not open. That makes sense. So here we go. Whoa, now we're back to the mastering session screen, but this is a true mastering session here. This is me. And as I said, here are my songs over here that I've imported in. When you do that, it creates them down here. So the first one is Yellow Butterfly. If you look right here, it has the name Yellow Butterfly. And this here, this visual that you see here is the mixed down version. It's not the master version. And this is Red Hot. And I can move these around. So if I move, I can just drag and drop this and move them around here. And these will actually move down here. It's pretty cool. You can make your fades. See, there's a fade here. I have a tutorial on fades, obviously. And et cetera, et cetera. And there's 5 songs. And if I hit here, digital release, bingo, here, they're all here. I can say I want an MP3 file or a WAV file. I can say what the sample rate is. You know, if I do a WAV file, it's going to ask the sample rate and the resolution. So 16-bit, 44.1 would be your CD, etc. And then all kinds of other parameters. Just wanted to show you that this is actually a mastering session. And how do you do mastering? Each one of these here, if I click on them, you see right here, it says Ozone 9. I'm using Ozone 9 mastering plugin. And it's more talked about later, but this is a good example of how you open up an existing file. I opened up an existing project, and here it is, and this is actually live. Now, to finish off this tutorial, these WAV files down here, as I said, are the visual of your mix down. It's not your master visual. It shows this so you can see the peaks and you can see what your mix down was. And you notice, like, if you look at here, that's a lot of headroom here, a lot of blue there, which is good. You want that in a mastering. And here, with Holding On To, which is a lot more dramatic song, you can see my mix down, not master, is very peaky. And here, these little guys are the verses. So I do a very dramatic drop in the verse. So what's your point, Gabriel? My point is that when you master this and you create a WAV file, and if you took that WAV file, which you could do, and import it back in here, all that blue space is probably mostly going to be gone. Because one of the things you want to do in mastering is push your volume. And there's all kinds of how far do you push your volume? Because the more you push your volume, the less dynamics you get and all that stuff. So this is just a view I want to show of opening up something that exists. And at the same time, it's a mastering example. So we will close this. And that's it for today, for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful for you, whether you use Studio One or not, because in any other DAW, you're going to be creating tracks and stuff like that. And I'm not sure about the mastering in other DAWs. I started with Pro Tools and I jumped to Studio One and I stayed in Studio One. So if you want to know more about any other DAWs that you're trying to make a decision on a DAW, I would just research it. And there's a ton of stuff out there. I like Studio One because it is more intuitive to me, and a lot of drag and drop stuff and a lot of easy things that you can do and work with. And I love how it interfaces with itself. You go from the song session to the mastering session. You can jump back and forth. That's in another tutorial. And it's just so quick and easy, and it's great. So hopefully this was helpful. I do hope that if you find this helpful and anything else that I put out there, especially not just the music, but also in the literary tutorials and also on my Radical Cathedral YouTube show, which is pretty radical. There's always new stuff coming out, so if you would subscribe, I appreciate it, but at the same time, it can help you find more stuff and keep up to date with all things that I'll be putting out, and help other people. Put comments in there in any of them. What you like, what you didn't like. What do you use, and how did you do this? And again, I promote a community of artists, musicians, songwriters, producers, and let's just do it all together, because together we are so much greater as a group. So hopefully this helped. Please like it, please share it, please subscribe, and in the end, just have an awesome, beautiful, creative, artistic day. Thank you. Take care. Bye.